Hey gang, Will here from the Ashland Fly Shop, and we are talking about the 2017 Holy Water Upper Rogue Salmon Fly Hatch, which is just a great event that we always look forward to. Seeing these bugs come back and out every year, it's just a really amazing thing. So we're going to go through everything that we've learned, what we expect for this coming season. So sit back and grab a cup of coffee. We're going to talk about this epic hatch that happens every year on the Upper Rogue. So the first thing we want to talk about are conditions that we're facing this year. So unless you've been living under a rock, we have a tremendous amount of snowpack to go through. So they are really pumping water through the Upper Rogue. They recently put it up, releases at 5,500, which is as high as I've ever seen it. Since then, they have pulled it back to about 35. But don't get too excited. I expect through the hatch, I expect it to be at the lowest in that 2,600 range and up to like 3,500, because we are going to get some warm days, and they're matching flows right now. And so if we get that really heavy snowpack melt and water coming down, they're going to match it, and that's coming right out of the dam at the Holy Water. So we like to see a little bit lower flows in there, but we're just going to get what we get this year. That said, it's all clear, it's all beautiful water, and we're thrilled to have it, but it always kind of plays havoc with the salmon, with the access there that we have. Another thing I should mention too, I think they've been working on the dam for quite some time, and I think they still are working on, and they're not releasing water through one of the sections of the dam. I think all that water is coming out of the spillway. So it's just a super impressive plume coming out of there. And I would expect that. We always have a bit of water coming out of there for the salmon flies, but I expect it to be, really pushing through there this year. So timing on this hatch, we've heard people say, oh man, I got a fish up there the other day fishing salmon fly in like mid-May, when there's only a few of them out, a few flying around. And so I think there's a certain amount of fish that can see those first few flies and get on them. So fishing mid-May, I wouldn't expect much, but I'd go up there, if you've got the time, and flop one around, just kind of casually looking around. So, so that's not a bad idea. As we get to the end of May, last week of May, that's when we really start seeing the bugs start to show up, if we have favorable weather conditions, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But once we get to that late May, I expect to start seeing some bugs. And then as we get into the first week of June, that's when the real peak is. I feel like from somewhere late May to the first week of June, that's when we see a really good amount of bug activity up there, and then it starts to taper off. Now again, this is really subject to weather. The weather can really push these bugs around. If we get lots of building high pressure warm weather, and then we get a cold front come through, rain, it can be really tough and really play havoc. So we want to keep that in mind, watch the weather, but anytime in there is a really good bet to go up there. So that's kind of the time frame, mid-May to mid-June. You want to start spending some time up there. And a real note on that, I really want to make this note. If you really want to be successful up there, you have to go up there multiple times. You cannot go up there once or twice and not have good fishing and feel like, oh man, it just wasn't for me, or it's not happening, or whatever. Like, you have to visit it several times and try it at different times of day too. Those peaks that we find, where we have the peak of the bug activity and the peak of the fish activity, I would say, in my experience over the last 10 years of watching this, those are fewer and far between, where those peaks are coming together, and harder to hit that right. So you really want to get up there a few times if you can. Come visit for several days. Give yourself time up there to be successful. So let's talk a little bit about fly selection and the flies that we're using up there. And we're going to kind of bring in how, what to expect this year a little bit as well. So again, this year I think we're going to have really high flows. So I think we're going to be looking at fishing the edges, which is where the fish hang out a lot anyway, looking for these flies to come off the trees and the branches and stuff. So fishing the edges is always a really good idea. And then when we get into higher pressure situations with folks up there, that's when we need to start branching out, looking for fish in the middle of the river. But let's bring it back to fly selection a bit. So I always really feel if you're drifting down a river and you're banging salmon flies from the bank and you're really covering a ton of water, that's when you really only need to use a couple of different flies. And there's a lot of rivers like that in the West where you're just cruising down the river and the fish aren't really getting that kind of pressure that they're going to get at the holy water. These fish are going to see a lot of flies. They're going to see a lot of flies, and you are really going to have a hard time moving around and finding fresh water on the holy water. It's no secret. So people are going to be, kind of on either side. People kind of stake their claim in certain spots and they don't move around so much. Now that's not such a bad idea, not such a bad thing though, because having a good spot and changing your flies, and I think this is a really critical piece that we don't see people doing that much at the holy water, is really changing your fly patterns. And I won't even really go up there and fish a section unless I have like 6 flies to go through, because that way if you rotate flies you can really show the fish that you're working over a different pattern. And I can't tell you how often I've seen that work. When I'm like moving between a fly, getting a look on this fly, but not a big, and I switch to the next one and then wham, it wants that one. I might catch one fish, I might catch a couple, and then it's off. And then I try another one. And then I start the rotation over and, we're back in the fish. So that is a key thing. You cannot rest your whole experience on one fly. You really, really need to rotate flies around. Now the other section, we talked about the holy water, but the other section is the rogue itself below the hatchery. So launching at the hatchery, fishing down to, all the way down through Shady Cove is a very, very good bet for the salmonfly hatch. Now this doesn't open for trout until the 22nd. So on the 22nd, that stretch is open, but that's perfect. That's kind of peak time. We were probably already going to be seeing salmon flies out there. They're going to be around, they're going to be in the trees, and every fish that's in the rogue, except for salmon, whether it's a holdover winter steelhead, a new summer steelhead, outgoing smolt, a resident that's decided to stick around for some reason, or who knows other kind of salmon, a cutthroat trout, sea run, or resident or whatever, they're all going to come up for salmon flies, okay? We don't think of trout, we don't think of the rogue as a real trout fishery, but this hatch brings up all the fish. So it's a really good time it's our only chance at the year for a really run and gun type of fishing, Montana style, Rocky style fishing on the upper rogue. Awesome time to drift, awesome time to cast big bugs from the boat to the bank. Great time, and you can get a lot of fish. We've caught some beautiful fish doing this, so we love fishing that way on the rogue from the hatchery down through Shady Cove. It really peters out down below there. It opens up a little bit, as you know, but it's really a lot of nice dense trees and stuff up there. Perfect habitat for salmon flies, and they will definitely be out up there. And that's that upper rogue stretch. Okay, so let's talk about equipment for salmon flies on the Rogue River. So it's a big river. The Holy Water is a big section. It's a big water. We get all the water that's in the Rogue basically comes out of the dam. So again, we're talking about like 3,500 CFS this year, 2,500 CFS. So a lot of water to cover. Fishing in close, you can really get away with small rods, these big flies, 4-weights, things like that. But you're going to want to punch some flies out there at some point, and your 4s, even some of your 5s, are really on the small side. Honestly, I've seen people, and I myself have fished 7-weights up there, and I think that's totally in the game. I think fishing a 7-weight is not out of the question. So I think 5, 6, and 7s, depending on the rod, are really the rods that you want to use up there. A rod that can really deliver a fight. Like this is your chance. This is where your fast action rods like really come into play. When you can really fish a lot, and when you're hooking fish, you're using heavier leaders, so you can really kind of get on them and hook up hard on them and fight them. Man, there's some big fish up there. So a stout 5 or a 6 is really going to serve you well, even a 7. So let's move right into there to trout, to leader selection. Beginning of the hatch, like May, mid-May, late May. Leader selection, I'm sending people out there with 2X and 3X, 10 and 8 pound. In the beginning, these fish are looking for these flies to hit the water. They're so jacked on seeing this giant, Happy Meal fall on them that that's what they're looking at. They're really on it. They want to crash it. And they're just not concerned with the leader size. What they're more concerned about is the drift of the fly on the water, how that fly is moving, turning, your drag-free drift. Your drag-free drift way outstrips your leader size. So, and also you want to catch these fish. So an 8 pound is like set up on it. I see guys fishing up there, 5X and stuff. You're going to lose a ton of fish. You're just going to lose a ton. Now, as you get into the later part of the hatch, now they've seen a bunch of flies. Now you start downsizing, maybe even the fly size, the leader size. You maybe lengthen your leader, 9 foot, 10 foot, 12 feet I've heard people doing. But, casting a size 6 on a 12-foot leader with 5X, it's tough. So keep that in mind. Try to keep that 7.5 feet, 8-foot leaders in the beginning, lengthening out a bit. Start with 10, 8 pound, and then you can start stepping down as we go. And that's really what we've seen over the years. Give yourself a chance. Like use bigger stuff. You could hook the biggest trout of your life up there, and if you're fishing 5X, it's game over. I'm sorry to say. So let's talk a little bit about etiquette up at the Holy Water, because it's a small space and a lot of people like to go up there. A lot of people like to use it. So I think you have to assume that you're going to have company up there. It's also a unique place in the question of a river, because typically you walk into a river and you fish your way down or you fish your way up. And if you see someone else on the river as you walk in, you kind of see what they're doing. They're going down or up, and you can fall in behind them, or you can go way upstream and fish a different section and move the way they're moving. Not so much at the Holy Water. So at the Holy Water, you're really going to want to give people kind of a wide berth. Now, people should also expect that you're going to go in above them or even below them. But you want to give them that area that they can move around in slightly. And that could be, if you watch how far they're casting, I would probably say that's like 2 times the area that they're casting in. And just keep an eye. If you see that they're really working their way down, then just assume they're going to kind of get down to where you might want to be, and then you can go above them and work your way down. But that's the kind of etiquette you want to have. People are just going to hang out. If you're a camper out there, and you got a really good spot, good on you for getting the spot. But if you see someone behind you who's kind of hanging around or looking around, and you see people around, rotate your spot. Don't be a dick. Rotate your spot. Like rotate out, let someone else go. There's no reason to just hang out on one spot. Give someone else a chance, especially if you've got a really good spot. Like it's over in this sun on the upper side. That's a great spot. Don't just camp on it. Move around. So keep that in mind as you're fishing up there. Another thing that we're seeing a lot that we really love to do, and we've talked about a lot in here, is trout spays. And these are little kind of mini spays in the 10 to 11 foot region, really great actions. These rods are just perfect for fishing salmon flies, and the Holy Water is an absolutely perfect place to use them. They're just a blast to fish. And they're really good, and you can really get out and reach some water that you might not be able to with a single hander. And I've been playing around with this up there for the last couple years, and it's definitely paid off. It's a pretty good way to go. So you can skate flies with them, pop flies, and you can dead drift flies as well with these rods, and you can really cover a lot of water. I want to make a really clear point about it, though. They take up a lot more space. So you want to make sure, if you're fishing with a trout spay up there, you want to make sure that there's no one around you, and you're really moving around, and you're really giving people, you're really making sure you're not infringing on anyone else's space, because you can easily with these rods, and you're taking up a lot of space. You got to be more aware of it than you are with the single handers. At that point, but they are really a nice thing to do with a rod like that might be to go up early in the morning when there's not as many people up there. Give yourself a chance to fish some different water or be out there late. Fun rods to use, but please be aware of etiquette when you're using these rods up there. So that's our preview of the 2017 Holy Water Upper Rogue Salmonfly hatch. We really appreciate you tuning in. We're definitely going to have higher flows to work around a little bit up there. And even with keeping this year, we may have some inclement weather to look out for. But don't be too discouraged. We always really have great fishing up there for certain periods during that time frame. So definitely bust out the trout rods, get up there. It's a really awesome time of year, an awesome time to fish up there, and we really look forward to it every year. And we're thrilled to offer any up-to-date information we can. We have tons of salmon flies in stock, patterns that we've sort of honed down on over the years that we've been doing this. We've got some really great stuff to choose from. Give us a call, 541-488-6454 here at the shop. I'm happy to help you. Thank you.